Hi, my name is Greg Laughlin, and I am the product manager for Stats IQ. Today we're going to walk through a demo of Stats IQ and hopefully give you a sense for what makes it so special. So there's 4 main benefits that our customers describe to us when they talk about what they really love about Stats IQ. The first is that we make advanced statistical analysis accessible for folks who might not otherwise have that kind of experience. So regression analysis, for example, making it possible for folks who've never done it before without spending a month studying how to do so. Second, you can move much faster. Our customers tell us they move 5, 10, 20 times faster in Stats IQ than they did in the old analytical software they were using. Number 3, moving faster doesn't mean that you just go to lunch earlier. It means you can also get a lot more insight out of your data. You can just ask a lot more questions. Number 4, all of this is within the Qualtrics platform you know and love. So you never have to leave. You never have to send files around and have 8 different copies that exist. It's all just right there within Qualtrics. Okay, so let's get started. The data set we're going to look at today is a hotel customer satisfaction data set. So every row in this data set was one person who stayed at the hotel. And they were asked questions like, how old are you? What's your gender? Did you have children present when you stayed? Etc. So here's what that data set looks like in Stats IQ. You can see these variables along the left side, the questions we were just talking about, analyses that we're going to run, and then all the results will show up here in the middle. So the first thing you want to do when you're looking at a new data set is often to just get a feel for sort of one column of data at a time. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to select age, and then we're going to select describe. Describe means let's look at one column of data. StatWing looks at that, automatically understands the structure of the data, and shows the appropriate kinds of output. So this is numeric data, so you see sample size, median, average, and a distribution of the data. If you look at a different kind of data, say location, and then describe. Location is not numeric. Location was a single select multiple choice. So you get a different kind of output. You get a bar chart with confidence intervals and so forth. So this isn't rocket science, but it helps you move a lot faster because you can say to Stats IQ, I'm interested in all of this data. I'm going to select every variable we have. Again, click describe. And Stats IQ is going to give you output for each one of those variables one by one. This is a pretty significant time saver. The next step in analyzing data is often to look at relationships between 2 different columns of data. So let's say we're interested in the relationship between satisfaction and return status. So if you were doing this kind of analysis in traditional statistical software, you'd have to understand the structure of the data to choose the appropriate statistical test for this specific situation. So you'd have to know that satisfaction is numeric, return status is binary, you either are or are not a returning visitor. And then you have to know that the combination of binary and numeric means you need to run a t-test. That's just the test that you have to know or be able to look up in a book or ask somebody. That's the exact test for this specific situation. In Stats IQ, you just have to say, I'm interested in return status, I'm interested in satisfaction, and now I'm going to select relate to relate those 2 columns. Stats IQ looks at the data, understands its structure, chooses the appropriate statistical test, runs that test, and then translates the results into a plain English sentence. So here you can see returning tends to have slightly higher values for satisfaction than new guests. This is a statistically driven sentence. Folks who want to can dive into the sort of underlying statistical output, things like p-values and effect size and so forth, but really most of the time you don't need to do that because all that information is encapsulated in the sentence up top. Stats IQ also produces the kind of output you'd expect to see, things like counts and averages and medians and distributions. Again, that was all in just 3 clicks. If you look at a different kind of relationship, let's say the relationship between return status and location, you're going to get a different kind of output. Because again, the structure of the data is different. And Stats IQ is making the appropriate decision given the structure of the data. How should we present the results? What statistical analysis should we run? So here, there's a very subtle but statistically significant relationship between return status and location. You can see these little green arrows indicate that of the folks who were staying in the UK, 75% were returning visitors. That is higher than typical. You can also dive deeper into this analysis. And you can say, hey, I'm going to filter this, and I'm only interested in looking at folks who are perhaps between 30 and 40 years old. Stats IQ will run that additional analysis on the fly and present the results. You can also export this analysis really easily. And that way you can show it in Excel or PowerPoint or whatever presentation software you'd like. And I should note that when we open up this export, you can see that these are Microsoft chart objects, so they can be resized, recolored, whatever you'd like to make it appropriate for your brand. So we just ran 1 and 2 statistical analyses, and you can see how it saved us a little time, not have to look up the appropriate statistical analysis for that situation. But if you do that across 20, 30, or 200 or 300 variables, you can start saving a huge amount of time. So that's what we're going to do right now. Here we're going to select every variable, And the variable we're interested in, the output we really care about, is satisfaction. So we're going to look at the relationship between satisfaction and each other variable here. We're going to click relate. Stats IQ is going to look at 22 different relationships, run the appropriate statistical analysis, stack rank them in order of their statistical strength. So the variable in this data set that's most highly correlated with satisfaction is age. Folks who are older tend to give higher satisfaction ratings. So we'll circle back to that in a bit. If we scroll down, we can see a few more analyses, the next most highly correlated variables with satisfaction. Return status, which we already saw. And now I'm going to scroll down to children present. So children present tend to have slightly higher values for satisfaction than adults only. So that's kind of an interesting finding. Is there something about having children with you when you stay at this hotel that means that you end up having a more satisfactory experience? Or is it just that folks who have kids tend to be older, and we already know that folks at higher age tend to be more satisfied with the hotel? That was the top variable we saw a minute ago. So in order to unpick kind of a complex multivariate situation like that, we need to use regression analysis. So I'm going to select satisfaction as my output variable, and my input variables are going to be children present and age. And then I'm going to click regression. So in one click, we get an output that has sort of plain English explanation of what's happening. So controlling for other variables in this regression, when age increases by 1, satisfaction increases by about 0.05 on average. So the finding we saw before was for real. There is in fact a positive relationship between age and satisfaction. But if we look at children present, controlling for other variables in this regression, when children present changes from adults only to children present, we average a decrease in about 0.25 in satisfaction. So when you have children present, you actually have a less satisfactory experience at the hotel if you're controlling for age. So there was, in fact, kind of an artifact in the data. It was all about the correlation between age and satisfaction. Having children present actually leads to a less satisfying experience. So that's an interesting finding for this hotel. Maybe they should think about the experience of having a kid at this hotel. It's a really actionable thing, and it's something you just wouldn't be able to pull out without regression analysis. And this speaks back to what I was talking about earlier about ease of doing statistical analysis. For folks who might not be comfortable with regression analysis, you saw that just took a few clicks to get there. So I hope you noticed how much work we just got done in a pretty small amount of time. That really frees you up to ask more and more questions of the data and really squeeze out every last drop of insight. And then of course, as you were doing it, everything was presented in a plain English fashion. So it just makes it a much more pleasant experience. And all of this is part of our mission to make statistical analysis efficient and delightful. So that concludes our demo. Thank you very much for watching. This was just the tip of the iceberg though, so if you have any questions, please get in touch.